Today's video is all about the Render Network, unlimited GPU power for the next generation 3D and AI creativity. Today we're going to be doing a deep dive into this project, looking into some of the fundamentals such as the team, the tokenomics, the utility, and the overall value proposition, trying to figure out whether this project has what it takes to make it to our portfolio. So you know what, let's talk about the news, let's analyze the charts, and let's strategize to capitalize. Welcome to the channel. My name is Mike, and let's get right into it, guys. If you're new to the channel, welcome on the channel. We talk about cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, Ethereum, and all the altcoins, looking for opportunity. And the question is Render an opportunity? Guys, we're going to be doing a deep dive, looking into some of the fundamentals, some of the details, and really looking at this project from a retail perspective. As newcomers come into this space, looking for new projects, looking for the next big thing, does the project offer all the details and all of the documentation in order for us to get fundamentally bullish? We're going to use the website for the main platform. We're going to take a look at the white papers. We're going to take a look at some of the socials, the metrics, and so on to try to get a grasp of this project. And at the end of the day, look into some of the details that could make us fundamentally bullish. All right, guys, let's begin. Let's see what's going on here. Landing page for the website is pretty cool, and you can see it tells you exactly what it's all about right at the landing page, right at the start, the distributed GPU render network. And basically that's what it is. It's a DePIN project that redistributes GPU power to individuals that need it. Okay, so let's get into more of this. Let's just kind of scrape through the website here first. Transform your creative workflow with speed and scale of the render network. So it offers some resources for creativity, and those resources are basically GPU power. So it's GPU power to provide you with the near limitless rendering power at a fraction of a cost. Okay, so if you're a graphic artist and you're getting into AI rendering, various scenes or whatever the case may be, and if you're looking for that software solution that's going to provide GPU power and that rendering that is required, hence the name Render, of course, then they have a solution for you guys, and it's definitely on the cheap. It's much cheaper than having your own workstation or your own resources or trying to pool those resources from other places, right? So in this case, it's a decentralized project, right? It's supported by the Render Network Foundation, so they do have a DAO, and it's a non-for-profit dedication to advancing the core Render Network protocol and fostering the growth of its vibrant community. So far, so good. This is a sample type of project or type of render that it was able to achieve. You can see that's very nice, high quality. Cloud rendering made easy, secure, and affordable. That sums it up pretty much. It's fast, elastic, and affordable. So elastic, decentralized supply provides nearly unlimited scale to meet any project's needs, right? So as the project gets bigger and the network gets stronger, you get a lot more nodes out there, and then a lot of GPU sources basically added to the pool, and it becomes somewhere where you can depend on getting unlimited scale to meet any project's needs. Okay, that's very, very, very interesting. The future of 3D rendering and generating AI imaging. We know that this is the case where AI, and especially with the rendering of graphics, is very intensive with regards to processing, and it's a very necessary thing, and that GPU power. So in this case, the compute narrative definitely steps in here, and this is what they are trying to offer, is the whole back end that allows this whole type of rendering to exist. And going forward, they have Octane Render, Redshift, and Bender cycles with the latest generative AI imaging tools. There's a lot here happening, providing an integrated platform for next generation digital creation workflow. So they're trying to keep up with the trends as well with what's happening with AI, and I appreciate that, of course. Let's continue going down in the news. You can see that there are some good exposure, for marketing purposes. VentureBeat, CoinDesk, Variety, Harvard Business Review. Okay, pretty good there. They have a frequently asked questions page if you want to go check that out. FAQs are always great to summarize some of the information that you may be interested in. That's good. Go check that out. And as you can see, we conclude the website with a bunch of good links for research. We got Facebook's, LinkedIn's, especially LinkedIn's. You guys know I like the LinkedIn's, and of course the Mediums, to kind of see what they're offering, and X and so on, and some other good pages that could definitely be used to inform. And I have many tabs open right now that we're going to go through. Okay, so let's continue. So that concludes the website. It does a pretty good job giving us an idea of what it's all about. And as you know, I like getting into white papers. I'm going to tell you this: the white paper with regards to its infrastructure is quite detailed. Okay, it's quite intense. And again, this is not a tech deep dive. I'm not getting into technology here. I'm getting into, Render as a Web3 project, as a token on Solana. That's what I'm asking. We have to ask ourselves, what is the utility of the Render token? Render as a network is one thing, right? It's its product offerings, it's its services, it's how it generates interest for people to want to come and engage, whether it be a customer or a provider of GPU. We have to decide that based on what Render as a network offers. However, the utility of the coin what matters most to me, and of course it stems from what the Render network offers, right? Why else would somebody want to hold the token if Render network itself doesn't offer anything necessary for them to hold the token for, right? So this is all ties in, but again, I'm not getting into too much detail here, guys. It could go way over our head with regards to the tech, and I'm trying to keep it as retail friendly as possible. So there's a problem, obviously, computational infrastructures, bottlenecks, and so on. But reality is that the lack of GPU power in the industry right now is definitely feeling the heat, right? With AI, definitely necessary, needing a lot of that AI power. And when there's lack of power, we try to find efficient and more effective ways of distributing this power amongst society. And they found a great way to decentralize the whole network and obviously pool resources together and provide those resources to individuals globally in such a way that it makes it more efficient and effective. And this is where a Web3 solution comes into play. Okay, so overall, feel free to definitely check that out. They have their own consensus, proof of work. Cryptocurrency mining has led to an arms race where increasing compute resources are dedicated to mining fixed regressive block rewards. However, GPU's proof of work, right, blockchain mining, have demonstrated productivity per watt, leading to many GPU models to become unsustainable. So what happens here is that what you're doing is you're as a GPU provider, you're going to be rewarded based on the contributions to the network with regards to GPU resources, right? So the better and the more sustainable and the more quality resources you provide, let's say, the better you're going to be rewarded, and you're going to have your spot within the network, because basically you're contributing to the network sustainability, right, that way. Okay, so you get rewarded for that effort. So its value proposition, again, so it allows complex GPU-based render jobs to be distributed and processed on a peer-to-peer network, making transactions processes offer rendering and streaming 3D environments, models, and objects much simpler for the end user. And it's much more than that, right? It's not just for the end user. It's even for individuals that have extra, GPU power hanging around, and they want to be able to monetize and earn some off of it. And that type of thing. It's definitely available. That's an option as well, to think about it both from a back end and a front end. It offers two solutions there. So furthermore, the Render Network platform can be used for applications like cloud sourcing, 3D projects, to digital rights management, and much more. So go check it out. Studios are going to love it. Artists are going to want to be a part of this. So definitely one of the major things that attracted a lot of us to Render earlier on in this cycle is when Render was a big heavyweight, that offered these solutions, and we started seeing AI wake up, and all the graphics that were being produced, and the gaming concept, and how Render could be the solution to the metaverse by providing resources for rendering the metaverse. And this is still a big part of its value proposition. So in this case, cases and applications. We kind of summarized that already. Visual effects and motion graphics, definitely there. And then virtual assets and NFTs, basically the ability to create NFTs, and be able to use their standard, the ORBX file structure or file standard that they use, that allows them to generate these graphics. It's a proprietary thing for them, that is something that they use natively within their product offerings or their tech stack. So that's something interesting to kind of dig deeper on if you're interested in the tech. Virtual production and so on, project mapping. There's a lot of good simulation, visualizations, and so on. This is what you could use these graphics for, or this services for. And then emerging applications, things that are coming around, like augmented reality and gaming, of course, artificial intelligence. This is something that has permeated throughout the Web3 space and even Web2 space for the last little while. So rendering network architecture. This is where things get a little bit difficult, again, because there's a lot to be said here. However, it can be split into two different parts. You have the creators, which are the node operators. So the off-chain rendering network comprised of creators, node operators, the render network, and rendering application layer vendors. So node operators are GPU nodes that provide power to the network. Again, node operators in this case provide GPU power, and they're basically critiqued or judged, or their validity is basically based on their ability to provide high quality GPU nodes. Basically that, and they get rewarded for that, and they basically power the network, so they deserve some sort of reward for powering the network. It brings the utility to what render has to offer, right? And then the blockchain layer, it's a totally different layer, and this is where things kind of get confusing, because they still use the old render ticker, RNDR. The ticker has changed since they migrated to Solana. The whole contract has migrated to Solana. The ticker is actually full out render, spelled in its full. But in this case, the white paper here kind of still keeps the old ticker, and it has been updated. When was the last time it's been updated? I know there's a date somewhere right here, May 26, 2023. So even this page right here is outdated. It's now 2025, June. So it's like 2 years old, and it definitely needs an update. Okay, so a lot has happened. Well, a lot should have happened for render in the meantime. Okay, and we're going to talk about about renders, progress and sentiment in a second. So that's that. Sorry, guys, for bouncing around here. And then we got the architecture. So you got the reputation scoring, as I mentioned, the node operators reputation. Basically, it's built on the timeliness and accuracy of completing jobs. The better you are completing jobs, the better you are to basically earn rewards. Okay, so just let's keep it at that, nice and simple. Allocation of resources, so job allocation, node allocation, so the allocation of the nodes, and even the jobs themselves. If you're a good creator, meaning you have a good reputation as a creator, as a user, you're obviously going to get a better score, and it will definitely improve your ability to create, and so on. And then the same with the node allocation that is being allocated to the job. Okay, so the Octabench is the software, again, proprietary software, or a proprietary measurement tool that they have to score the reputations. Okay, so that's pretty much it. Privacy and security, you can read that. End-to-end encryption, hashing, virtualization, and secure centralized storage. That, when you talk about a complete DPIN protocol, you want it to be complete DPIN, which when I see the word centralized storage, it kind of bothers me, because then what are you talking about? You're talking about AWS. It could be the case. Are you talking, and there is, potential instances where a lot of these bigger projects, still use AWS or, Google or Azure for some random things, or even maybe their own in-house centralized storage. Regardless, centralized storage offers usually the best use case in the sense that it's efficient, but then again, it's centralized. So there's bottleneck issues and choke point issues. Okay, so let's move on from that. The Render Network API SDK supporting development outside their network itself. So commercial third-party applications on top of the Render Network, which is great. That introduces more interest for individuals, developers to create using Render and what it has to offer from a rendering standpoint. And then back to the ORBX file format. It's a standard. It's a file format that is used in-house. Okay, so again, I'm not going to get into too much detail here, but when you package up a job and you prepare the job for, for it to be rendered on Octane render interface, basically it is basically sent to this interface via ORBX file structure or format. And in this case, this is what's part of their ecosystem. This is their proprietary workflow they got going on. And again, if you want to know more details, I would go into it a little bit more, read through it, all that. Multi-render support, render network, and AI. You can see that there's the peppering in of AI, and it is rightfully so, because when you're talking about rendering or GPU power, AI, GPU, that's a hand in hand, that's a match made in heaven. And at the end of the day, I realized that they may need to have to pivot into the AI field is actually good. It keeps them where the thick of things are. It keeps them where right now a lot of individuals, especially within the DeepIn space, are focusing where to allocate their resources and their focus, and it's in the AI space. So it's very valid, obviously very valid standpoint and mindset. The render network, the virtual assets, decentralized GPU streaming experience. They have a streaming experience. It's called the XIO GPU application streaming framework. So focusing just on streaming 3D applications, services, and experiences. So again, they're trying to offer, a pay-as-you-go basis using Render, and obviously give people the option to decentralize their streaming GPU resources. So experience is definitely here if you're into that. And then job procurement and payment. So there's a multi-tier pricing. There's this mechanism that tiers the pricing depending on the state of the pool and obviously the complexity and how the scoring of the nodes and the creator is based on scoring. And there's different tiers: tier 1 service, tier 2 service, tier 3, as you can see. And then depending on the tiers that it fits in, you would be charged, or that would be the pricing model that you would fit into. So it's based on an if statement. If you're tier 1, you pay this. If you're tier 2, you get what I mean. So typically there's a different range depending on which tier you fit into. And this is where things get a little bit more interesting for me when I'm looking at isolating the value of a token, the value of a coin, and here we are talking about burn and mint equilibrium. So there's a mechanism here that the mint function and the burn function work in tandem. But what's most important to me is that creators use, basically, once the work is complete, so the rendering is complete, and the proof of render is accepted by the blockchain, creators use 95% of their fiat fee to programmatically purchase render, even if they used fiat currency, let's say US, right, USD, and to subsequently burn it. So automatically, even though the front end experience could be paid via, let's say, hypothetically speaking, via credit card, to make it extreme, that currency gets basically transferred or right away, or purchased, used to purchase render, and then right away it is burnt. So indirectly, the front end, the user itself, does not necessarily have a blockchain experience. Although in the back end, what's happening under the hood is a complete blockchain experience. So this is actually a good thing, right? Because ultimately, you don't want to make friction. You don't want to have friction for end user experience. The end user at the end of the day doesn't care if it's blockchain or not. For the most part, us degens, we do. But for the most part, users of a software solution, they just want to pay their fee and go and use the service. And if the backend is programmed in such a way that it still uses the blockchain technology, and without the user knowing, win-win situation for everybody, right? So in this case, 95% is purchased and burnt, which is good. A public log of all these transactions is issued to calculate proportionate emission-based rewards for contributors at the end of each epoch. So in this case, there is a scenario where there is a reward structure and it's calculated based on the burn, right? Basically, the activity on the chain. And in this case, the remaining 5% is paid to the foundation as a transactional fee in order for the fund, the render network operates. So to fund the network, to fund the project, there has to be a little bit of cash flow in there. Guys, we got to appreciate that, because ultimately it requires capital to get projects running, right? And to keep them afloat. So it's pretty balanced. Basically a 95% burn of all fees and 5% goes to the foundation, and the foundation is governed by a DAO. So basically, if you're a token holder, you can vote and propose ideas and so on and so forth. So the governance is definitely there, which is good. And as we go, it's basically there's this balance and effect, and this balance and effects emissions are used in the BME, which is the burn mint equilibrium, to incentivize activities that enables development of the multi-sided decentralized network, bridging together node operators and demand for creators. So this is balancing act that they got going on here, which is quite interesting. Okay, so each epoch is based on the use of the network. So the more use, the more you get the epoch coming, and based on that, your rewards get issued bit by bit. That's about it. Okay, so render burn mint equilibrium. You could read into that a little bit more. Emissions incentives. Again, creators. And node operators and liquidity providers. So we talked about these two already, because creators could receive a percentage of their render spent that at each epoch, basically back in the form of render. This could ideally incentivize them to further use the service, getting a bit of a kickback in tokens, which is not bad. And the node operators, obviously, they need to get rewarded for keeping the network alive. And then liquidity providers will be rewarded for at each epoch for contributing staked render to the liquidity pools. Very typical, right? What liquidity pools are at the end of the day. Very, very typical. What else do we got here? Yeah, net emissions cap. You could read that. What else? Implementation of this. Guys, you can read through that. Rendering engineering fees. Rendering engine fees. Render network protocol will charge 5% network fee on all transaction, which is imposed to cover any infrastructure costs. Guys, this is part of the foundation. We talked about that, and then we got some contract addresses and so on. And we have to understand that Render left Ethereum earlier on and went onto the Solana network. Now I'm going to tell you this: there's a lot of confusion there, guys, and it's with regards to tokenomics. The communication is very, very difficult here. After over 100 deep dives that I've done, every single week I release a deep dives. As you guys know my history. I've done many, many deep dives, which follow the same format. I don't deviate. And I'm going to tell you this: Render is probably the top 3 in difficulty, in the sense that the team has not packaged the information in a very neat, concise way to really understand maybe the history. That's fine, because there is some history that needs to be resolved or talked about if you're interested. But to be honest, it's not even that necessary. The clarity is what's so important here, guys. So I after doing this deep dive, there was so much like ambiguity, and what I do basically conclude is that there is an emissions that slowly is going to dissipate over time. And you could read this, and this document being 2 years old, it kind of leaves a little bit of insecurity. You know what I mean? Like, is there things that I need to know that may not be listed here after 2 years? The emission schedule outlined here, as you can see, over time, the amount of the rewards diminish over time. Okay, and of course, this has a lot to do with their tokenomics with regards to like their circulating supply, max supply, total supply, which we're going to talk about in a second. Okay, so architecture improvements, improved reputation algorithm. So this is maybe a roadmap, but not really, because there's no timing or anything. And I believe they do have a more updated roadmap, but again, the roadmap in itself, speaking about a foundation, when you're talking about foundation or a DAO, roadmaps get lost. They get lost somewhere in the DAO, you know, and we'll talk about that as soon as I get into a roadmap in the DAO section of this video. Okay, so let's continue. That concludes the white paper, guys. Really, that's about it. Now, I just want to quickly talk about those tokenomics that I was saying. Let's just quickly go to CoinGecko, and you'll see market cap is approximately $1.4 billion, so it's fairly large. Fully diluted, you can see that it's almost fully diluted. Circulating supply, 580 million. Okay, the total supply is almost there, and the max supply you can see is almost there, right? So you can see the tokenomics are okay. So even if you see that there are some rewards that are going to be emitted over time, just note that it's not a lot of tokens that are going to cause, so much dilution. Okay, because you can see the fully diluted valuation is very, very close to the full to the market cap, which means that there's no real risk of dilution in this case, right? So we're pretty good here with regards to that. Now, still, there are some tokens that are still lingering, and as the migration continues from, because there's still tokens on the Ethereum network, guys, and they're pegged 1-to-1 in the sense that if you transfer over from Ethereum to Render, they're still valid, right? You could easily do that, and it's still open for them to be bridged over, so that's good. And the most interesting part, which a lot of people don't understand, is that as they do get bridged over, the tokens on Ethereum get burnt. Okay, so the Ethereum-based tokens get burnt, and then they exist on Solana after that. So that's something to really understand. What else? We talked about the white papers. We went through that. And then there was, there's this Render network knowledge base, which I found to be pretty cool. Good videos and all of that if you want to know a little bit more with regards to the tech, and then the render to the render, what you need to know, again, going from Ethereum to Solana, and other concepts here, render network tutorials and different things in different languages and so on, and the foundation, the RNPs, which we're going to talk about in a second, and the equilibrium. So a lot of what we already talked about in a Gitbook style, and I appreciate Gitbooks so much more than PDF white papers. They should be more active documents, but in this case, I feel like this was never really used as a interactive white paper, which in my opinion it should, right? It should be. In fact, this should be reworked to feel like a white paper and offer these type of resources, which are great, maybe at the bottom somewhere, and just use this interactive white paper as the official white paper. Because after 100 deep dives, like I'm telling you, I've seen majority of the teams successfully issue a proper documented white paper using Gitbook, and I appreciate so much more. It's searchable, it's easier to read, it's easier to navigate. You can put links that work effectively and efficiently. You can install videos, and you can make a full-on package explaining what your project is about from beginning to end, and ultimately give enough information so the end user or the retail investor feels very comfortable, right? So I feel like there's a lot of information spread across a lot of various avenues. When I tried to do tokenomics, guys, it was very, very difficult because the emission schedule is not very clear, other than the fact that it's being diluted over time or reduced over time, and when are these epochs going to occur? There's no real clarity as to when they happen. They're approximately once a week, okay, maybe depending on the network action, which is fine, but still, like, these are things that just leave me a little bit, okay, fine, I just gotta put some faith into the system that they got going on here. Let's move on from that concept and let's get right into more of this tokenomics issue. So I just wanted to show you the Ethernet contract. This is it, the old render token. Okay, this is on Ethereum, and there's still some people holding the Ethereum based token, and little by little they should be migrating over to Solana. Okay, and just know that it's still very active. There's no issue here. Now if you go on to render, this is where it matters most. I'm gonna just quickly go back if I can. Let's see if I can go back, just updated. No, now Let's see. I don't want to exit this completely. Let me close this to see what happens. Let's hope for the best. There we go. Okay, so you can see that, there's a lot of information here. The render token is now spelt like this. That's the ticker. So that's how you know the difference of what you're buying. And you'll notice that a lot of exchanges have already kind of delisted, centralized exchanges, the old render token. They've already migrated it all to the new one, which is good. And you can see that holders are increasing little by little, which is good. And all the metrics, pan out. What else do we got here? It's list. We got a lot of the transactions, the accounts. These are the holders. Okay, so what I was gonna show you, or what I am showing you, is the visualization of all the holders. And when you start looking at this, you can see that there's a lot of holders. But if you look to the left, you start to see there's this one wallet with 20.88% of the token allocation, which I believe is this one right here. Okay, so I'm gonna just keep that in mind. Okay, it's not really something to worry about just yet because it is the foundation wallet. Okay, so it is a foundation, it's a reserve. Okay, and I'll show you in a second. Right now, let me just show you what I mean. Right here, you can see this is the, where is it? Right, treasury. There we go. The treasury of Solana. This is the token address. Okay, so this is the type of information that should be on the white paper. We shouldn't have to go to third-party, aggregate providers like Dune to give you this type of clarity and this type of transparency. So this is why I feel like their documentation doesn't do a good job. It needs to really give us a lot of the information, one-stop shop place for us to get the details that we need to get fundamentally bullish. Stuff like this. Like if you're going to go on Solana and you're going to look at all these, okay, this is a big one. Okay, maybe this one's not big, but I like the fact that it says that this is tied to, Binance liquidity, Kraken liquidity. But what about the rest? Okay, they're only 2%. I get it. But I'm sure that those are exchanges, maybe some exchanges as well, small ones. Like look at Gates is small. They only have 0.88. Is this belong to another exchange? Well, if they can't get the name on, like they do have Binance, you know what? Then put it on the white paper. Put a list of maybe the top 10 wallets and who they are, like what are they contract wallets or not, right? And if they are, they should be clear. Now the only one that is really concerning me was this one, and I was able to figure out that it was the reserve there, so that's totally fine. And if you're interested in digging more into it, you can see the Dune website does give you a lot of good information with regards to its emission schedule, much more than what the team is offering, let's put it that way. And you can see that they got a full-on graph that eventually you get fully diluted, and a bit over time the emissions decrease all the way to 2083. And right now we're right around here, so we're still emitting, but you can see over time, like, it doesn't get that much. It definitely decreases over time, and we start to hit the max level right around here per se, but it does diminish significantly right around this zone. So there's a bit of token still to be emitted to reach this level where we flatline a lot more, but it's going to take some time, and it's going to be slow emissions that slowly gets diluted, which is fine, which is slowly gets not diluted, but it slows down significantly over time. Okay, so you don't run the risk of dilution is what I mean. Okay, so pretty good. It's not bad. There's still, like I said, there's still some tokens that need to be emitted via reward, and the reward mechanism is not that clear to me. Okay, and going on to that, they offer this Excel sheet. I don't know when it was been updated, and you can see, and I honestly don't know if this is valid or updated. I start to look at what some of the numbers here, and you can see the treasury, they have 23%. Maybe this is not updated. And then you have the render DAO rewards. This is what they got, 16.67% of the token, the rest of the tokens that are not in circulation. Like what I don't really know where this fits in, but I just found it linked on their white paper. I wanted to just bring that to you so you can see, some of the metrics and see if it's any valid. I wasn't able to get any much clarity out of this, to be honest. I have no idea what this really presents, if it's valid or if it's up to date or anything like that. So you can see that, you can hear the sense that I have of ambiguity. And when there's ambiguity, things don't look good. So they need a proper packaging. And we'll talk about more of this. Let's jump right into their marketing. So I would like to say that their marketing right now is a bit cumbersome, in the sense, maybe not now, the marketing of the past, let's do that way, because they did take a step forward, but their past has been very cumbersome, to the point that they are still feeling the effects of the lack of marketing. There's a lot of disgruntled individuals right now. If you go on their Telegram, they're not very happy. And you know what? I appreciate the team addressing the emotions. And now I know that the markets haven't been treating us right. And during these moments, those emotions get heightened to the maximum, and we have to understand that when price action is not going in your favor, all the negativities get amplified, right? And I'll admit, as a render, I got into render very, very early, and it did very well for my portfolio. But after, the Apple, relationship, nothing really happened in a really good way, which meant that at that moment, render could have reached its overvalued position or state. And from a marketing perspective, it's very hard to sustain that overvalued position over time. It's not that it's overvalued in the long run. I meant in the short term, as the whole events with Apple and this and that, and the markets were doing decent with DPIN and graphics, and the buzz was there, and render was at its peak. Though at that moment, in the short moment, render could have been overvalued, and it's very hard from a marketing perspective to keep that state. And that's what I mean here, is that marketing at the end of the day didn't keep up with its value. And they do have a medium, which, okay, May 7th, January 31st, November, and we're talking about 2024 now. So what happens is that it doesn't look like it's very, very manned or kept up to date. We have the May 25th, which is not bad. Okay, they got some here, but very sporadic, and lacking. So in my opinion is, if you're going to have a medium page, either keep it up to date or don't have it at all. That's what I say, because it's not necessary. And if you have it and people want to go sign up for it and you're not producing anything on it, then it starts to look pretty bad. It looks unkept and unmanned. That's not what you want, okay? And if you go on their X profile, I think their X profile is decent. They got a decent amount of followers, and they're always cranking out some cool renders, and I always appreciated that. From a lot of good rendering projects do this, but render has the ability to captivate an audience because of its size and its interest of the general market. I just feel for the amount of social engagement that they get, or the amount of followers, I think they could have a little bit more social engagement, and there's a little bit of FUD, let's put it this way, across the community. So I stumbled upon their Telegram, and there's people just basically very annoyed with the way things are going. Now, I'll say this, and now that I stop right here, this is the ideal time to stop and just do a quick introduction to the individual that I think could make a major change, because up until this individual, Sylvia, got hired, I don't really see a very strong presence of Web3 tech. And this stems back, or goes back to what I said in the beginning of this video, where my deep dives are not necessarily a tech deep dive. I speak about Web3 technologies in the sense of tokenomics, the utility of a token. Why do you need a cryptocurrency, quote unquote, cryptocurrency? And if the team itself is very established in, let's say, the technology of rendering, it's very hard for them to package a product that is technically, from an investment perspective, a Web3 software solution that has a token. And based on that, you cannot market it as a rendering software. You need to market it as a Web3 project. And I think Sylvia is going to come to the table and really make some changes here, and perhaps give some life back into the marketing. So we'll talk about this more as I dig into the team, but I just stumbled upon her profile picture here, and I think this is great. Okay, I think this is potentially going to give render a bit of life here, and I'm hoping that's the case. We'll talk about more of this in a second. Now, back to their medium, they do have a Render Network Foundation monthly report, which is great. So May 2025 was a monthly report. You can read a lot about what they offer, what they say. Unfortunately, their roadmap is not very clear and very ambiguous, and not provided for the most part. And this is one of the major complaints of the community at the current moment, is that they have a lot of things that they say they're going to achieve, and they do not achieve them within a timely manner, or haven't achieved them just yet. And you can read across the socials and see what some people are saying. Now, again, guys, from this perspective, I I feel render. I understand where render engineering is all about. As an engineer myself, I get it. At the end of the day, timing, output is not ideal, right? Because things happen, guys. It's engineering. Back to the drawing board. Things don't work out. Back to the drawing board. Back to the drawing board. Funding this, funding that. Back to the drawing board. And this is the life, right? That's the thing. So, adhering to a schedule and then not making it is worse. So then maybe don't provide a schedule altogether. And I understand that, right? That's a valid decision. However, you cannot blame the general public for being lost without a roadmap. Roadmap is very clear. It's in its name. If you want your followers and your community to know the path to which you're taking, you have to define that path. And if the general public appreciates your path, you have to make sure that you actually take the path and at least show progress to that path. And people will, most likely support you through that path. But if you don't provide the path, it's a bit of an issue. And people lose their minds when not only is the path not being shared or, traversed, what happens is that when the price falls, it's a lot of FUD and emotion, because they feel like they're not getting the leadership they need through that path. So that's what you got to think about. Roadmaps are like literally where the team is going. And without that vision, it's very, very difficult. Now, the question is the team even a strong team? And I'll tell you that, again, the team, I'm glad to see that the team has expanded. Let's put it that way. We'll talk about that in a second. So back here, back to the Render Foundation, who this project is and what they're about. They're a foundation, okay? So there is a founder, CEO, this and that, but they have a Render Foundation network, the Render Network Foundation, advancing the next generation of rendering and AI technology. So as a render token holder and being able to upgrade your render to render, okay, so that's still available to you guys. You are able to come in and propose and vote and be part of the community as a token holder. So this is great. They have that, and a lot of the times, this is part of how we decentralize not only our backend, our infrastructures, not only our tokenomics, nice and distributed across many wallets, but also the organization themselves, right? An autonomous organization is one that is governed by a DAO, and this is basically the foundation, and the foundation, basically is governed by a DAO. So governance is where it's at. So here they facilitate AI rendering governance. So governance history, you can go check that out. And they got a lot of different things. Now, what bothers me is this. Usually a roadmap is defined and clearly defined, but as soon as you introduce a DAO, the DAO takes over where the roadmap is going, because ultimately everything gets voted on. And this is one of the issues with DAOs, is that they're slow moving because everything needs to be voted on and all of this and all of that. And then not only that, because even that can be overcome, but who takes ownership and who defines the roadmap? And nobody defines a roadmap. Nobody defines where are we going with things. What's the next step? Where are resources being allocated, both financial and human resources? Where are they being allocated? And no one really knows, because as soon as you start going into, where was I going to show you, the GitHub, which is right here, you start looking at, the voting and what the different things, the RNPs, which is what they vote, basically the proposals. You start to look at, okay, what's in progress. You start reading what's in progress. It's like there's nothing really in progress. There's nothing really happening. And I don't even, now I'm starting, when I look at this, I start to feel like, is this even valid? And from a retail perspective, you're asking a retailer to come in here and an index of current RPNs and understand where they're going with. This is not user friendly for the average individual. And you start to lose trust that this is even an active document. So again, it's the communication that lacks here. For such a big project, I expected communication, proper communication. Now, who would have made these decisions? Let's meet the team. Let's accept that. Let's meet the team. The founder and the advisors. Okay, this individual here He's the founder of the Render Network. And I was able to find some of the LinkedIn accounts of these individuals. Let me jump right into, okay, let's save her for last, because I think that's an interesting, so this is the founder. Okay, you can see that was the same individual. Okay, Harvard University, OTOY. Guys, this is where also ambiguity comes into play, because OTUY is basically Render, basically the tech developers behind Render's stack. Okay, let's put it that way. In this individual, Jules, he basically is the chief executive officer at OTOY, which provides the tech stack for Render. So now it starts to become like we have a centralized organization offering Render their tech stack. It's kind of like weird. Like the integration is kind of weird. It seems a little bit off to me. How there's two identities, one that takes care of the tech stack and one that offers the token. It's like trying to separate the token from the tech. Very difficult mindset for me to wrap my head around. Okay, that usually is a bit of a concern for me. Harvard University never went. Is it a joke? Is it fair? I don't know, guys. It shouldn't be something that should be joked about anyway, and that's about it. So this bothers me, because if you look into OTOY, not even on the white papers do they give you valid information and who and the connection to the founder, Jules, and that he is also the chief executive officer. Being the CEO of the company that provides the tech stack for the tokenization is almost like removing the tokenization from the tech, which is kind of, again, concerning to me in a way. Let's go back. Now, if we start going to the team, you have this individual right here. Lots of experience in bootstrapping, sports global presence, Endeavor, now leading company recognized in innovation, college, okay, sports and entertainment landscape, okay, sure, pretty good, again, CEO, and then you go right here and you start to read, let's see, American filmmaker, and comprised of renown of his contribution to action, drama, science. Abraham has involved in writing, producing, okay, Luke Skywalker, Rise of Skywalker, Star Trek, okay. I'm starting to see Hollywood, production, and I forgot to do this, dude. So OTOY again, strategic vision for OTOY, and this chief architect of the company's technology roadmap, widely hailed as a pioneer in community graphics, very valid, computing graphics, years of industry experience, and you can see video, everything to do with 3D video, licensing software video, 3D content. So what are we concluding here as I'm going through this, okay? This is the only individual that let's see if we can conclude something here together. A creator of JavaScript, and so he is the creator of JavaScript and the co-founder of the Mozilla project. After earning degrees in mathematics and computer science, he began his career in Silicon graphics before joining Netscape in 1995. So he's developed JavaScript, a language combining, if you guys know JavaScript, it's a pretty big language, okay? It's a very web-based language. Java syntax, creative spider monkey engine for Netscape. So he has the engineering part of things with regards to programming and development, and maybe DApp development and language. And you can see BAT is definitely here, basic, if this is what I'm referring to, the other crypto project, but I don't see a description here. So interesting regardless, okay? And then there's a little bit more. We keep on going further. I see Apple, SpaceX, Nike, Coca-Cola, and some others. We're getting into this, and because I'm trying to really conclude this with energy, okay, with real strength. You're probably thinking, Mike, why do you care so much? I'll tell you why in a second. Okay. Deep AI, deep tech. She was recognized in Forbes. Perfect. I love it. Mathematics, finance, with additional leadership training from Yale, Oxford, Princeton. Wow, what a beast. I love it. World Economic Forum. Savagery, right? Like amazing, strong. Let's keep on going. And we got this dude, business executive, mathematician, former hedge fund manager, AI, key, company behind staff diffusions. Okay, all of that. beautiful. Where's the Web3? Where's the crypto? I don't see anything to do with crypto, which kind of bothers me. And why I see when I see that OTOY is the back end, and I see render being the crypto, and I see that division, and not only that, I see no one really that is going forward here with the crypto aspect of this project. It explains a lot to me. Their communication and packaging of the crypto based project is lacking severely. Like, I don't see this as a crypto based project at all. And that's a problematic thing, right? Because at the end of the day, is this going to be a Web 2 project, or is it a Web 3 project where they just slap the token on it? And for me, that's a big problem. Now, again, I could be misinformed. And again, the information, my misinformation is totally on the render team, because this is what they provided, right? This is what I'm seeing here. Now, what I do like is this, and again, this could be the biggest thing going forward for render. In my opinion, if there's going to have a proper turnaround with regards to marketing, packaging, communications, again, it's going back to Sylvia, marketing and growth leader, blockchain, Web3, crypto. This is a new individual that just got put into her role, which is great. And you can see April 2025. So only a couple months. She's not going to be able to change the world in a couple months, but I believe that this is a strong step forward. She's not even listed on the website. That needs to happen ASAP. Okay, and I'm glad to see that she's all over socials doing her thing. And if you look at her resume and her experience, you can see why I prefer digging into LinkedIn accounts, because it tells you exactly why this individual has the potential to turn things around here. Now, I'm not talking about price. I'm talking about fundamentals. Price, we got to wait for market conditions, right, to change, because projects are going to be suffering until market conditions change. But at the current moment, from a fundamental perspective, the disjointed communication that Render has out there is very problematic. And that's why the FUD exists, is because the lack of leadership in Web3 space does not exist. Sylvia could bring it to the table 100%. Building a go-to marketing fundamentals for crypto, blockchain, Web3, everything. You can see go-to market strategy, fractional marketing leader. Perfect. Okay, so we got some tech-based marketing experience. Let's keep on going down. Navigating a tedious DeFi UX on your own means, swapping, bridging, pooling rewards. So chief marketing officer at fractional contract. So crypto-based marketing officer. Head of marketing US, head of growth global, Bitstamp, an exchange, marketing crypto professional. Head of marketing, Viable, full-time. Customer feedback analysis software powered by natural language processing models, including GP4K, OpenAI, AI, tech, marketing background. So we have something here. Masters of Business, Masters Political Science, okay, fine, but you get what I mean. I think at the end of the day, what we're really looking for is an individual here that could lead in the marketing and communication space, and bring some of that vision to the Web3 community, because I feel like that's where they're lacking. The current team or the team of the past may have had the strength to communicate the graphic aspects of things. And I've seen this on many of the deep dives, where individuals come from other industries and want to bring it into the Web3 space, but they really undervalue the necessity to be proficient in Web3 and be able to communicate their Web3 ideas. It's not good enough to be able to communicate your rendering, graphics, and 3D ideas. It's not enough. And this is where you lose a lot of enthusiasts within this new emerging market. Okay, so back to what this is about. You can see OTOY, they got some individuals there, and this is the founder, and that's the company. So I started to look into them, and that's how I stumbled across this information. And then back to the roadmap. The roadmap is a community effort, and this is a big problem. For me, this is not the right answer. Right? Yes, it's a community effort, but it still needs to be published. Our roadmap is set by our community through render network protocols. And if you start clicking, it asks you to go to Discord and Telegram, and you're there to go and beg people to tell you what they're working on. That's not. And if you click this, it takes you to the GitHub, which is not a user-friendly way to communicate at all. Okay, so you guys know where I'm coming from, guys. It's about transparency, honesty. It's about, what is render, and is render packaged properly to be sold to the retail investor, they got some work to do, guys. Definitely. All right, guys, let's jump right into some price action because I know you're here to do that. But before we do that, I really want to give you that summary that I give you guys every single time. A quick summary about what we talked about today, the Render network. Render, let's take a look at ecosystem. I think their internal ecosystem is spectacular. Okay, they got lots going on. Again, that OTOY has definitely, that company has offered and contributed a lot of their technology here. So that's great. 10 out of 10. Is a centralized identity that's bringing in this infrastructure? 100%. But their ecosystem is still valid there, right? The utility of the token. As a token, lots to happen there. Payment for GPU, compute, incentives for node operators, governance, participation, and staking and liquidity. That's typical. But the utility bothers me from the sense that, you know, what is it and where is the transparency in the documentation? Right? I'm just pulling from all kinds of resources. So there needs to be communicated a lot better. The roadmap, DAO-defined roadmap, that's a problem. A lot of the times projects that are run by a DAO, they hide behind the DAO instead of providing the clarity of the roadmap with no follow-through. And a lot of people are complaining right now about that on socials, unfortunately. Focusing on increasing users, which is valid, of course. More users, more action, better network, and so on. The team, Jules, founder, visionary lead, he focuses on graphics. His whole passion is about graphics, and I gotta respect. He's a pro. They need that specialization, but they gotta get somebody in the Web3. And that's what I say. The team is docs and all, but the team was underrepresented in Web3 space until now. And that's why I'm telling you guys is that until now they got an individual that is heading the marketing in Web3, which I think should make a huge difference. So I give them 7 out of 10, and I would like to see where the team goes forward with that regard. The socials, they got a good amount of followers on X, and Discord needs action. I wasn't able to log in, but then I was able to, but it needs some action. There's not much happening there. Telegram is active. However, there's a bit of FUD boiling up there, guys, and that's not good. But I give the team or whoever's there from the team on Telegram, I give them a lot of credit for trying to answer questions and simmer everybody down in a very respectable, honest way. So I give them that, but they got to come up with something. Right, and the representation is big. Represent the Web3 space, and you'll get some people really representing Render, and that's what you got to do. You got to step away from. You're not a graphics company. You're a crypto company. Enjoy and embrace the industry and the community, and they will be loyal. Okay, that's how it is. You got to show loyalty and transparency, and you get lots of loyal degens out there ready to back you up. Tokenomics, again, lots of ambiguity because of the old and the new, and the Ethereum and the Solana and the this and the that. They need to clean that all up and make it squeaky clean, and maybe don't emphasize so much on the past, because the past really doesn't matter as much. So it's important. Emissions are weekly, epochs by epoch, based on network use, so variable, right? Who knows when and how much. Rewards for creators, node operators, and liquidity providers, that's clear. And 95% of the fees are burned. 5% goes to the foundation. Healthy. However, the ambiguity, like I said, matching of the old and the new, it just gets too much, and it gets overly complicated. And because of that, it gets scary for people, guys. Okay, you got to clean it up. Relationships. The OTOI is the core tech partner, and it's almost like there's a relationship there. The founders are the same company. It becomes like the OTOI is a security. It's a company. There's a founder. It's a private organization, and then you have Render that uses their tech stack and relies on OTOI relationship, but they have a token that's supposed to be decentralized and run and not I don't know, guys. I don't know. Blender and Maxon's Redshift rendering engine level, which is good relationships there. Metaplex, Launchpad for tokens and NFTs. That's an interesting relationship there. So they got some good relationships. But again, OTOI kind of bothers me without clarity. And without that LinkedIn and without that relationship being well defined, it's problematic for me. 10 out of 10 for exchanges, guys. Don't expect any volatility based on exchange listings. They're listed everywhere. Plain and simple. You're on the majors. You're on Binance, Coinbase, Bitmart, whatever you want to buy. Lbank, all of them. BitGet, whatever it is. Bitmart, BitNex, guys. BitNex, all of them. they're there. So you're not trading any exchange listings in the immediate short term. So just keep that in mind. So I'm gonna also throw this out here, guys. The market has been volatile. So be patient with me. Understand that, you know, I made the graphics when it wasn't that crazy out there, and it has been a little bit crazy. So the metrics are going to be a little bit off depending on the timing, and of course the recording and the creation of this infographic. So bear with me, guys. Get the latest and the greatest data on CoinGecko, CoinMarketCap, or even on chain. Okay, guys. So do your best to stay as accurate as possible. This is just a little bit of you know, a summary, a framework to kind of keep in your back pocket when you want to know and remind yourself what Render's all about. So it's a deep in AI, NFT, metaverse, and much more type of thing, because it is ultimately a deep in that can be applied to many different industries going forward, for sure. The largest wallet holds 20.88%, but it's a treasury address. So I just want you guys to make sure that it's not one holder that's ready to rug, okay? So just be clear about the wallets are distributed, the tokenomics, you know, a lot of the tokens are already in circulation, are almost fully diluted. So there's no real worry too much about rugging. OTOI is holding 23% of the remaining tokens. This is where things get ambiguous, because I saw that on that spreadsheet and I have no idea where they're going with this. And if that's the case, that's a significant amount of tokens. Okay, that's where things get a little, because you can see that there's a difference between the total supply and the max supply, and that difference. Let's see if I got it here. I don't have it here, but if you look it up, or do I? Yeah, max and total. There is a difference. Who owns those tokens, or who has allocations to those tokens? Is it OTOY? And that's a lot of tokens. Obviously, over time, right, they're going to get those, but still it's tokens to understand that a centralized organization that has providing the tech stack owned by the same founder, you know, it just gets a little issue-y for me, you know, without the clarity. Burn Mint Equilibrium controls token flow. Guys, look into the Burn Mint Equilibrium function or process that they got going on there. It's really interesting. Tokenomics, to be clear and better communicated, not retail friendly whatsoever, guys. It was one of the harder deep dives to do because of the lack of clarity. Too many documents, too many bouncing around of different things, no clear one-stop shop, nicely presented information for me to get bullish on. And that's an opportunity lost. Right? That's an opportunity lost from a marketing perspective. Payment can be made in fiat. It's converted to render and burned as part of the Burn Mint Equilibrium model. Interesting. Cool stuff. Okay? Because that means that the user doesn't have to even feel like it's a crypto project. Again, I already spoke about that. Roadmap hides behind the render network proposals. The roadmap is not very clear. We don't know where we're going with things at all. And it's a sign of accountability, guys. If a team doesn't want to be accountable, they just won't deploy a roadmap, or they'll hide behind the DAO. And that's the problem, right? With DAOs, there's a problem with, so it's up to the team to really identify the problems of issuing a DAO or having a DAO, and getting involved enough to balance it off and take full advantage of the benefits of the DAO, but at the same time identify its shortcomings and compensate and try to make it better. Release a document once a month or whatever to show exactly where the team is going with things, regardless if it's a proposal or not. Maybe you can make a little document that says, you know, these are the proposals that we're working on, and list them and make them clear. Put them on your Git book. Make a Git book. Git books are easy to maintain and update. You don't have to wait every 2 years to do it, right? You should have a marketing professional doing that all the time. Communications, that should be part of their job description. Given the amount of X followers and engagement is really low. It's true. Yeah, guys, that's a bit of a problem. But that's across the market in general. It's not just Render. I'll be honest, a lot of the socials right now are suffering within the space. So problematic. So they need a Web3 team member that knows how to communicate. And I think they found their solution. They hired a new marketing and growth lead, and this individual could be the game changer here. Okay, so all eyes on that. At the end of the day, these are the slight nuances that can turn things around significantly. And as long as the team embraces, a professional approach into the Web3 space, I think that they can turn a sentiment around. Render's a beast of a project. The bullishness of the project, I am so bullish on Render. But if they're going to not behave like a Web3 and start to look like a Web2 project, they're going to lose a lot of us in this space. Okay, so keep that in mind. Now, the only project that can compare it to is Tau, right? Really, because Render's so large already, and it's one of the leading projects out there within the space. So there's no real projection or benchmark. They're leading the way. They're paving the way. And in this case, the only thing you can think of is, okay, extension levels, right? Extension above previous highs, getting to like a Fibonacci extension level from price action, right? And we'll talk about that in a second. I say maybe $20. It could be very possible. But the problem is that we need a bit of a turnaround. So I give this entire project a 7 out of 10. It was a hard one to do because I wanted to give it a lot higher, but I couldn't based on the facts, based on the things that I've unfolded here on Render. And I'm hoping that there's some real changes here to reel in some of the core individuals that believed in Render. And I still feel like there's a lot of people that still believe in Render. But with all major changes, it's going to be difficult to compete with the degens out here that are full on Web3 and left Web 2 behind. And it's very important that Render shows that they're full on Web 3, and I'm hoping the new marketing team could achieve that. All right, guys, I know you're here to talk about charts, so let's begin. Let's see what's going on here with the Render chart. At the end of the day, guys, the market in general is hurting. It's not just Render. Okay, let's just be real about this. Don't look at an individual project and judge it. Look at the total market cap of this space. Everything is under fire. Let's take a look at this in a little bit more detail. Now you can see that Render did very, very well. And here on the channel, I've been, a big proponent of Render in its early phases. I got into Render significantly early at these bottoms, and I enjoyed the rally up. And I have the videos to prove it. But once Render started to get up to these levels, to the point, right around the Apple days and the Apple talk, that's when I had to cool off and purposefully had to back off making videos. Because I felt like ultimately it reached a level where it could be overvalued. Not in the long run, in the short term. Now, after, some time, about a year, it's now also looking like it was potentially long-term overvalued. Because we've been in a downtrend, but it's not just Render. I think the whole space right now seems to be overvalued, not only because of its intrinsic value, but in comparison to other asset classes like safer assets. Risk on assets right now are not hot commodities anymore because of all the issues that we're having, politically and globally and so on. So people are selling off, and we're seeing Render in many projects looking red. But the good news here is this. If you're bullish on Render, I can promise you this. You're not buying the top. The tops have passed. These were the tops. Now you're buying into a retracement. Now, the better question is, where is the bottom? And the only thing we can do here is speculate on liquidity zones, right? And follow the industry in general. Because as I mentioned, it's not just Render that's hurting. It's a lot of projects. So we have to not, make it an exclusive thing that Render's dumping, it's coming down. It's not about Render. It's about the industry as an aggregate that is currently hurting. So you got to ask yourself this. How is Render as an individual project going to hold up against its competition? And I believe that Render ultimately has the greatest chance to keep up with its competition. Obviously, we talked about the fundamentals. Fundamental changes can happen quick and swiftly. But price action is a totally different story. We are independent. We are very dependent on many factors when it comes to price action via supply and demand, of course. So we start to look at supply and demand zones, liquidity zones. And I say this, at these levels, this is the time to start slowly DCAing. However, I understand that the fear, the uncertainty, and the doubt, given the current market conditions and the global civil unrest that we have at the current moment, is, putting a damper on our plans. And this is where usually we get a lot of capitulation. Individuals that basically maybe got into over-leveraged or overexposed positions on previous breakouts, or didn't take profits at the top, are now round tripping and getting very emotional. And at the end of the day, if you can see where the liquidity zones, where the majority of the emotion is. It's right into this order block, which means that if we start playing with this area, we can slowly chip away out of all of these emotions to the point that we know that at these levels, there's people ready to get liquidated, unfortunately. So the next level for render at worst case scenario is that we continue dead cat bouncing and maybe keep on dripping all the way down to $1.14, $1.13 into this liquidity zone where we have the imbalance below based on this volume gap. Guys, it's very, very possible. So I just want to let's remove some of this artwork and just be very honest and clear about this. You can see that these bottoms right now are a struggle. If we do not hold these bottoms, I'm going to make them a little bit thicker, this line, so we can highlight its importance. If we cannot hold this bottom and finally get a nice proper reversal structure, which we're not getting right now, I'll be honest, all we're getting is a dead cat bounce and confirmed by a break of a lower low. If we get a lower low here, guys, this thing's coming down to hunt liquidity where it hurts most. And again, coming down to $1, guys, what can I say? It's going to come down looking for liquidity zones. Again, $1.17. That's my next area of interest. So if you're on the sidelines right now, now's not the worst time to buy spot. But if you buy spot, you have to be able to endure just in case this happens. If it happens, be prepared to buy the dip. This is what I usually do. I put arrows in and I define them as a 30-30-40 scenario, where you're going to go in 30%, 30%, 40%. And that's a good DCA blind order, limit orders type of scenario. You put those limits orders in and you slowly hold on. At any moment, you could get a bounce and literally we could get a bounce right into here. And we got to be real clear about the bullish thesis as well. The bearish thesis is clear. The bullish thesis is equally as clear because we're at an inflection point at $2.80. And I'll define the inflection point right now. So the 30-30-40 rule does really apply here, where you can DCA. But as soon as you see a market structure that shows support, that's when you can say, you know what, I didn't fill this. That's fine. I can use this capital now to increase my position size at a level that is healthy for risk to reward. And it could be right now. Let's zoom in a little bit. It could be right now. And the reason why I say that is because we're at horizontal supports. Who's to say that we can't get a bounce back test and start moving and bouncing right back up here in W formation and be and there's no lower low. We don't come down. Who's to say that that can happen? Now, of course, orange swan events, black swan events, things happen, news, tweets, this and that, they happen, guys. And this is what we've been experiencing the last little while. So we have to understand our invalidation of a bullish thesis is right below here, but a bullish thesis still can happen, which is a bounce from this level. So a setup can be applied here. You put a stop loss underneath here. You accumulate into this range as best as you can without, getting wrecked. And ultimately, you wait for a reversal. If the reversal doesn't come, you have to be willing to take it on the chin for a small loss, which is because you will get stopped out right here. And the next level to reaccumulate is back into this level where you start to see a market structure that shifts down here and that pivots down at these levels in oversold conditions. Let's take a look at oscillators here for a second. Let's see what the oscillators are showing. We're finally oversold in a big way here on the daily, and I imagine that Bitcoin could be oversold as well. But you can see that we're oversold in a big way. This is the times where usually the best prices prevail, right? But again, we don't know how long this FUD and these market conditions are going to last based on the current events, right? So EMAs are facing down. We're in the bearish control zone once again here on the daily. Everything's rolling over. It would be a confirmed dead cat bounce if we break below these bottoms, and a lower low definitely will cause a downtrend continuation. However, if we can hold the structure, risk to reward is in your favor. Put the stop loss, get the bounce. Let's get recovering and let's get going. But are we actually gonna do that here? For me, right now, the safety is the best thing to do. Don't take too much risk. Spot buys only. That's what I do. Spot buys and pepper those buys in nice and slow so that you don't take too much risk. All right, guys, if I've offered you any value in this video, do the channel a massive favor. Slap the like button. It does really help out with the algorithm. If you want to follow me on the socials, the links are in the description below. Feel free to join the Discord, guys. The Discord is where it's at. Lots of good alpha, trade setups, fundamentals, and learning material. The best part is it's absolutely free. And on the Discord, we have the deep dive process. Join and you can vote on the next deep dive that I will release next week on Sunday, same time, same place. All right, guys, take care. Have a good one. And don't forget, buy the dip.